You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Exciting news. This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode. So down at Bedford's camera today with this beautiful lighting and setup. If you're not watching us on Facebook or YouTube, you should probably go to that. If you're listening in your car, you should probably just turn it off and then drive home and listen and watch this podcast, because the setup is absolutely amazing. But my guest today is Toby Rowland. If you don't know his face, you'll definitely know his voice, especially if you're a Sooner fan. If you're an OSU fan, you won't like the sound of his voice because he's probably calling all the games that OU has beaten OSU. Wow. But yeah, I mean, really appreciate you taking the time out to come down to Bedford and record this podcast. You're busy. You've had back surgery this year. We're almost at football season, so I know you're gearing up for a lot of stuff and basketball and everything else that's happening. But also promoting a new book as well.
That's right.
I really appreciate you coming down and you know how, I guess we've just been speaking previously about this year and being in the college scene and doing everything that you do. It's a lot different to what you've done in the past.
It's been a crazy year for everybody on planet Earth, right? But no, our year has looked a lot different in 2020 because of COVID and no games. You know, that's my primary job, and they got canceled in March, and the entire NCAA basketball tournament and almost the entire baseball season for OU got canceled, and so that meant our job took a different turn, and I was recovering from back surgery in the middle of all of it. So it's funny, I travel a lot and am away from my family too much. And the first 6-8 weeks of recovering from back surgery and going through this, my wife and daughter, I've got 3 kids, but one's still at home, we're talking about how great it was to have dad around all the time. You know, this is the side benefit is dad's home a lot more than he used to be. Well, now they can't wait for me to go back to work. I've been around. I've been around for months now, and they're so sick of me. They're like, Dad, don't you need to be somewhere? Yeah. So we're really, really ready for this football season to kick off, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well, and we can call some games and get back to a somewhat of a normalcy. And I think not only does my family need that, I think we all need that a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. We all need something to just kind of take our minds off things and focus on, and that's the great thing about sports. And no matter whether you're a fan of any team, like just having competitive sports to watch, you know. And my father-in-law, like, he loves sports. He's a huge KU fan. And like,
sorry about that.
Yeah, it's rough until March comes around. Like, it's kind of rough. We'll have to wait till March next year now. But like he finds himself like watching Formula One or watching golf or just watching reruns of sports. Like, he can't just watch normal TV, you know. But yeah, he's definitely one of the fans that's like, I cannot wait to get back to watching live sports. So I mean, we're 10 days by the time this goes out. Everything, I assume, is ready to go now. You're just counting down the days.
Yeah, pretty much ready to go. I mean, there's always in this final stretch here, in a normal year, there's a lot of unknowns when you're putting together a radio broadcast. So more so this year, trying to figure out, we've had to scale down our crew a little bit from normal. We've got COVID restrictions that we're dealing with in the booth and on the sidelines. I was looking at an email just before we started about something we normally do with the broadcast that we can't do this year because of COVID restrictions. And so we're having to kind of figure out what we can do and can't do and how to work around some issues and how to separate people in the radio booth and all those kinds of things. But we'll get there. First few days is always a little frantic, but that's fun too. We've been sitting at home, like I said, forever. So getting busy feels good. Yeah. It'll get old eventually, but no, I think we're ready. I think this is going to be fun. We'll make it through it, and we'll adjust on the fly. And one thing I keep telling my crew is, because we're only going to have 25% of the people in the stadium, that we are going to have the biggest radio audiences that we have had probably since the invention of television, or at least sports on television. And there's going to be so many people that are used to going to the games that can't this year, that even though our hands are a little bit tied because of not having as full of a crew and everything, we've got to still have the best broadcast in the country. So we're going to try to do that.
Yeah. What was the last game you called?
Basketball game, February 18th.
Yeah.
We had Baylor in Norman and lost. And I had surgery 2 days later.
Yeah.
And
was the surgery planned, or were you like, I'm going to handle this?
No, the surgery was planned. I was going to have to miss, I think, 3 weeks of basketball games and then come back for the NCAA tournament. It couldn't wait any longer. I was at a pain point where I couldn't hardly make it to the car and back. And so I was getting set to come back for the NCAA tournament when Rudy Gobert happened in downtown Oklahoma City, and everything stopped after that. Yeah. So for the healing of a back, it was perfect timing. For mental sanity, it's been rough, but I feel good physically. I feel better than I have in a long, long time. So I'm raring to go.
Yeah, awesome. So everyone knows you as voice of the Sooners, and hears you on the radio and calling games and commercials and stuff, and now as an author for the kids book that we'll definitely touch on later. But let's go back. We both graduated from SNU. Yeah. Born and raised Oklahoman as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up here. Where'd you go to high school?
Indiana. Just threw you for a loop there. My dad's a pastor.
Okay.
Nazarene minister.
Yeah.
And I was in the Crown Heights area of downtown Oklahoma City for the first 5-6 years of my life. He was the pastor of Crown Heights Church of the Nazarene. So grew up in downtown Oklahoma City, basically. Horace Mann Elementary School, for people who know, not too awfully far from here. And then we moved to Mustang. He took a church in Mustang. And so that's kind of what I consider my hometown. I lived in Mustang throughout elementary school and junior high. Started playing sports out there, soccer and basketball and everything, and still love the Mustang area. Moved to Indiana. My dad moved us to Indiana in 8th grade. So I went to high school in Newcastle, Indiana, in the heart of basketball country, which was a lot of fun. We went to the same high school as Steve Alford and Kent Benson and some greats up there of Indiana High School, and then came back here to go to college at Southern Nazarene. Okay. And have stayed ever since. So I'm 47 almost, and all but 5 years I've lived in Oklahoma. So this is my home.
Yeah. Big sporting family, grew up loving sports. Dad loved watching sports.
Everything. I was a giant sports dork growing up. I was one of those
deep in the stats.
Everything. Yeah. I watched it. I couldn't. It was probably an early sign that when I watched a basketball game or a baseball game, I couldn't just watch. I had to have like a notebook in front of me and keep a box score. If it's a basketball game, I'd keep a running total of how many points everybody had scored when I was watching. I don't know how healthy that is for a 7-year-old, but I loved it. I'm 6 years older than my brother, so there was a while there where we couldn't necessarily play together. Eventually we did, but I would play baseball by myself in the backyard and pitch it and hit it and go field it and tag myself out, and then I would have a final score somehow, and I'd keep standings on all the teams. And I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan, so the Reds would win the World Series every summer in my backyard. So I was immersed in it. I couldn't get enough of it. I played, like I said, soccer and basketball. My dad was my coach. He loved sports. So it's always been a big part of my life. And, when I got to college at SNU, I went in as an accounting major and really kind of was one of those that was searching for exactly what I wanted to do. I was pretty good at math, so I thought, that
accounting,
added
safe
up,
bet.
right? Yeah. And then I got into it, and Rendell Garrett, I don't know, I think he was gone before you got there.
No, he was there.
Was he still there?
Yeah, he was great.
Did you have his class?
Yeah, it was miserable.
Brutal.
It was horrific. He just write on the whiteboard and then turn around at the end of class and be like, okay, cool, just learn this.
Yeah.
I can't read it.
A tremendous teacher, because if you survived his class, you were probably meant to be a CPA.
Definitely.
And I didn't. I was not meant to be a CPA. And so I had that conversation with my dad in college, and he ended up, he said, well, what would be your dream job? And I said, I can't think of anything cooler than getting paid to go to ball games. If I could maybe work out something in the world of sports broadcasting, that would be amazing. And he encouraged it, and we started trying to pursue a sports broadcasting career. Got an internship at Channel 9, which was huge for me my senior year in college, which happened to be 94, 95. And the Murrah building bombing happened in the spring of 95. So I was at Channel 9 when that happened. CBS National News came to town and set up camp in our building for a couple months and got to interact with them and work with them. And it was an unbelievable learning experience in the middle of a tragic time, obviously. But that year at Channel 9 really created some contacts and opened some doors for me that once I got out of college, kind of helped get me going down the path of broadcasting. Calling games started when I was at SNU. My senior year, I was on the basketball team, but I was terrible. I was on the bench and eating up a scholarship that the coach would rather have used on someone who actually could play. And so he kind of approached me and said, I got a deal for you. If you'll, didn't say these words, but I could read between the lines. If you'll give me the scholarship back that I'm wasting on you, we'll give you an equivalent scholarship to start a sports information department, because at the time, SNU only had basketball and volleyball.
Okay.
And they were on the verge of launching a bunch of sports. Like golf, which else. You played. Football came along. I don't even know what all. Baseball. Yeah, sure. Softball was about to start. So we're going to need a sports information department, and we'd like you to start that, and you can call games because that's what you want to do. And I said, that's great. I don't have to run line drills anymore, and I can eat all I want and get a scholarship. So I did that, learned how to call games. Larry Mills. I blanked. Larry Mills was the chairman of the School of Business, was the play-by-play guy for basketball, and I was his color guy. And we traveled around calling games, and he would teach me on road trips and in way too little airplanes. And he would teach me, this is how you do it. This is how you keep score. This is how you get in and out of breaks. This is what you're supposed to sound like. And I remember one day he goes, why don't you do the second half? And I was like, petrified. And I did it. And then we started, I'd call the women's game and he'd call the men's. And then one day he said, I think you should do it now. I think you should be the guy going forward. And taught me how to call a game. And then we started football and baseball, and I had to learn how to call those sports. And it was fantastic learning, because now I'm blessed that we have 10 people on our crew, and we have an engineer and a statistician and a spotter and all these people, and an engineer back in a studio to help me do a broadcast. My part's easy now. Back then it was a one-man show, maybe two. And you set up your equipment. You did all of your own engineering. You were your own statistician and everything. And to learn how to do all that on your own was great kind of guerrilla broadcasting that has really paid off on down the line for me.
So I had, I think it's Dr. Mills now. I had him.
He was Dr. Mills then.
I had him for business classes. And 8 o'clock class, and he does not have much enthusiasm when he's, he just he knows his stuff. He stays at his tone, doesn't he? And as a kid and student in school, he's just it's just how do I get to this hour? What was he like calling games? Did he have that upbeat enthusiasm, or was he just level-headed the whole time too?
We're definitely different stylistically. I get a lot more excited than Larry Mills did. But that was fine. I would say he calls a game in a very kind of like he teaches. It's a calm, soothing. He would be a great golf broadcaster.
He'd be very
calm, soothing tone. I'm a little more hyper.
He's not
way more hyper.
He's not going to be like the either Mexican or Italian commentators, which are screaming down the microphone and go and all the rest. He's not. He's the total opposite.
If we hit a game-winning shot, I may break the equipment. I'm yelling so loud. His would just slightly move the bar. It's not. But it was
so good to learn from.
It was he was technically brilliant. And all the stuff that goes around, just keeping your own stats and interviewing coaches and getting in and out of breaks, like I said, and the production of a broadcast, setting up equipment, all that kind of stuff. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I had not only someone willing to teach me, but a brilliant guy. We talked like on road trips and stuff. We would talk business too. I mean, he talked to me about, you need to be doing this for retirement funds and all that kind of stuff. And I owe him a debt of gratitude to this day. I mean, Bobby Martin, who was our athletic director, who allowed me to kind of get, started down that path. And then Larry Mills to have the unselfishness to say, I see some promise in you. I'll step into the shadows and you take over here. That's what he does. Special. That's what a professor does. He's trying to launch careers, business careers is what normally does, but he, launched a broadcasting career with his unselfishness, which I love him forever.
Him and his wife Judy, they've done great things for the community and SNU and people. BFC and just Bethany as a whole. Like they're a treasure for sure, and I do see him every now and then. I pop into school, or I see him at a game, or I kind of pass him and just kind of say hello, and he hasn't changed one bit. That's awesome.
He's a great basketball player too. He's a big guy.
He is. That's what I heard. He was it national championship winning, or was he on the team, or coached the winning, something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't think he was on the 81 team. I think he might have been an assistant for Lauren Gresham that team, perhaps. Yeah. But great people. I mean, I have such fond memories, and I'm still around SNU a little bit. My dad's on the board there and stuff, but such great memories of my time there, the friends I made there. But the professors really bent over backwards to, help me. Like, there wasn't really a broadcast journalism degree.
Yeah.
And Pam Broyles, Marcia Feisel, and Jim Wilcox, who unfortunately passed away not long ago, they went out of their way to kind of cobble something together to arrange the Channel 9 internship and help. And then, everything else I've already mentioned. It was nothing but tremendous memories of SNU.
Yeah, definitely. It's a similar experience. I mean, they've been great to me, and continued friendships with a lot of the professors. And, it's just it's amazing. I go places and they say, where'd you go to school? And I tell them, and they say, oh, I know this person from there. Or as such a small school SNU is, like, it has such a wide reach nationally and internationally, which is really cool to see. You go to a college golf tournament, or you go to an amateur golf tournament, you carry your SNU bag, and someone comes up to you and is like, oh, I know that school. I'm like, you do? Really? It's just kind of cool. But so that season, that senior year, and that really lit your fire for broadcasting and gave you you got the and the opportunity, and you knew this is just something that you could definitely do. The doors, I guess, were starting to open.
I would say when I was growing up, I loved listening to games on the radio. There were games on TV, but not as much as now. But I loved John Brooks calling OU games, trying to imagine in my head what they were describing on the radio.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a big Reds fan. Marty Brenneman was the voice of the Reds for 40 years, and I've listened to thousands of Marty Brenneman games, and something about that medium I really enjoyed. And so when I got a chance to do it in college, I was interested in everything in sports broadcasting, but when I got a chance to do it, a light bulb went off. I was like, this is awesome. I can't, this is a profession.
Yeah.
I'm going to games. I get to do what John Brooks was doing, and Bob Berry and Marty Brenneman. And so, it quickly became the most fun you could have. And how do I figure out a way to do this for a living? And the best possible job you could have in that profession for Toby Rowland, who grew up in Mustang, Oklahoma, listening to OU all the time and loving OU, would be to be the voice of the Sooners. That would be better than the Yankees. That would be better than the Dodgers or the Dallas Cowboys or anything. But if I could get, something in this profession, that would be the best possible job I could have. So even when I was at Channel 9 for a decade in a different kind of world there, I tried to keep my toe in the pond of calling games on the side, high school games, college games. Got to do a little bit of stuff for OU, and always thought, man, I hope I could get back someday to this being what I do all the time.
So you went straight from the internship then into a full-time position at Channel 9?
Well, there was 4 years after college when I was the sports information director at SNU.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Stayed at SNU.
Yeah.
But stayed in close contact with the Channel 9 gang.
Sure.
So it was Bill Tegans was there when I interned, and Chris Harrison, who is the host of The Bachelor now, worked at Channel 9 when I was there. We remained
OCU grad, right?
OCU grad, soccer player. We remained great friends to this day. Ed Murray was there, and I kept in close contact with those guys and always bugged them, hey, someday when something opens up, don't forget about me.
Yeah.
And sure enough, about 4 or 5 years after I graduated, they had a part-time position open for a producer who put together their Sunday night shows. They had a bigger show on Sunday nights, and asked me if I'd be interested, and so I did. I could do SNU and that.
Yeah.
But I got my foot in the door, and then it became a full-time position, and I quit SNU and just went to Channel 9. And then I begged them to let me do something on the air, and finally they got sick of me asking, and so they said, I'll tell you what, do the weekend morning show. You can do a little sportscast on the 5 o'clock on Saturday morning. Nobody's watching.
No one's watching.
And I remember vividly, I didn't sleep the night before.
Yeah.
I got there way too early. I put together the greatest 5 a.m. sportscast ever. I think there were some soccer highlights in it. And I remember going to the mall later that day with my wife and looking around like, oh, I can't wait till somebody recognizes me, because I was, I thought it was going to be instantaneous fame because I got to do a 5 a.m. Sportscast. But, they kept letting me do that, and then kind of worked my way up the ladder there. And again, another fortunate opportunity, great people. Bill Tegans, we lost him in the OSU plane crash, but he was such a great mentor and cheerleader for me. Another guy who I learned from and how to call games and relate to fan bases. Dean Blevins was such a great friend and mentor for me, and we worked together close for 10 years. And we, there were nights where we didn't get along very well, but a lot of nights where we did. And that happens when you work that closely with someone. Greg Blackwood, who I still work with today at OU, and Chris and Ed, and on and on and on, Stan Chase, so many great people who not only supported my career, but even to this day have been good friends and cheerleaders.
That's awesome. So then, so you're at Channel 9 for a decade, just knocking on the door, and then you get your shot at 5 a.m. And then how long are you doing the 5 a.m. till they'd say, oh, okay, we see your talent in you, you're going to get a good spot now?
Well, I don't think I was on the air for the first year and a half I was there. Then I started getting some early morning stuff. And then the 3 position came open, which is kind of the reporter. You're not hosting you're not really anchoring, but you get to turn some stories once in a while. And that was a lot more on-air experience.
Out in the field?
Out in the field, covering games, high school games, whatever, turning stories. I liked that a lot because I got to write. I loved to write, and so I could do some feature stories, and that was great. Did that for a couple of years, and then the 2 position came open, which is the weekend anchor as well as doing some stories, and that's kind of where I stuck and for as long as I was there as the weekend anchor. And so I hunt and pecked my way up the ladder a little bit at Channel 9 and got more and more experience under my belt, and would have been happy doing that for the rest of my life. I mean, it's a hard life to have a family. I had a couple of little boys at the time when we were at Channel 9, and I didn't get to, I missed a lot of baseball games and helping with homework in the evenings because you're working nights, you're going in at noon and not getting home until midnight. And so it was a hard life, but I loved it. And, so who knows? And maybe I'll go back to it someday.
Put in all your time, put in all the hours, the years of doing this, and then the opportunity at OU comes up. And then you are one of, I guess, a few people to get that, to apply for that job. What was that experience like?
Well, I was on the crew as the sideline guy. I got the job as the sideline guy in 2009.
Yeah.
So I had been, which was huge, but I'd been on the crew for a couple of years when Bob Berry announced he was retiring as the play-by-play voice. And I mean, that's, the golden egg. I mean, that's the one that you always talk about. Man, wouldn't that be awesome? Who knows? He announced he was retiring, and I talked to my wife and she said to me, "You're going to try for this, right?" And
Which is a great thing for your wife.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she knew. We talked about it forever. She knew. And I said, well, of course, I'm going to put my name in, the hunt. But just so you know, we've got no chance at getting this job because there's a lot more experienced broadcasters out there who are going to be interested in this. And
it's a huge position.
It's a huge position. Walter Cronkite started as the voice of the Sooners. Kurt Gowdy, John Brooks, Bob Berry, Mike Treps. I mean, it's one of the biggest chairs in sports broadcasting. The voice of the Oklahoma Sooners has been a kingmaker, really. I mean, it's been unbelievable, the names they've churned out. So, and it's a school and an athletic department that is in the hunt for everything. They're on the biggest stage in football, basketball, baseball, you name it. I mean, OU has been really, really good for a long time. So just temper your enthusiasm. We got no.
Well, and also it's not a position that's like you spend 10 years at maybe and that's it. Like this is a long position too, right? Like it's kind of a position that people in the past have done it till they have decided they're going to step away rather than, which is great. Like they want consistency and they want you to be on there and be the voice, and they want fans to listen that maybe grew up listening to you when they may be playing or going to the school, and then listen to you after they graduate.
Right.
And
that's why you throw your hat in the ring, because you don't know if it's going to come open again in your lifetime.
Yeah.
But I was in my mid-30s. I was young and didn't think I had much of a chance. But we, they cut it to the top 5, and we had some phone interviews, and I remember being excited just about that.
Just I have an opportunity, I have a chance.
Well, and I told Jenny, if even if we don't get the job, we can always tell people, hey, we were one of the top 5 candidates. I mean, that's how big of a deal it was. And then they cut it to the top 3, and the same thing. I was like, well, they're probably just throwing me a bone because I'm the sideline guy. But now we can tell people, hey, I was one of the top 3 candidates.
Yeah.
And it's a funny story. Actually went to campus for interviews when they narrowed it to the top 3, and I met with Joe Castiglione, the athletic director, and that went great. We knew each other well. My wife made me buy a new suit for the interviews and everything, and then he walked me over to President Boren's office, and I'd never met President Boren. I knew of him, obviously. Very intimidating man, has worked in intelligence at the highest levels in the government, and we met, and he knew everything about me when I walked in. Like, he knew my family's names. He knew all my teachers at Southern Nazarene.
Yeah.
He'd done his research. But we had a great conversation. For an hour and a half, we talked about the job. We talked about the history of the job. We talked about my family. It was so comfortable.
Yeah.
And it was going really well. And I remember he looked at his watch and he said, "Oh, I'm going to have to let you go. Henry Kissinger's coming over the house tonight, and I got to get home." And I thought, it blew my mind. I thought, that's the first and last time anybody will ever tell me they got to go because Henry Kissinger's coming over the house. But I left and skipped back across campus to my car, and I called my wife, and I said, we might get this job.
Yeah.
Because it went that well. And she goes, don't get your hopes up, And sure enough, they called a couple of days later and offered us the job, and I don't know if I was their first choice or 10th choice, but it has been an absolute life changer for us.
Yeah.
It has been better than we could have imagined. We imagined big things, and the places we've got to go and the games we've got to call and the people we've met and the players and coaches and everything has been unbelievable.
Dream.
It is a dream.
Yeah.
It really is. There's nothing I'd rather be doing in this world.
Oh, I got goosebumps thinking about it. Like, you get that job and then you're straight to work, I guess, right? Like,
don't screw it up.
Don't eggshells and all the rest, walking on eggshells, all the rest of it. But what's first game? What's that
terrible.
whole experience?
Well, it was a terrible idea, and I've given my boss a hard time about it since. But my first game was a spring game, the red-white spring game, which I've learned is the hardest thing that we do because there's no real teams. There's a red team and a white team, and in the middle of the game, the guys on the white team may switch to the red team and back and forth, and nobody really knows what numbers anybody's
literally
wearing.
the hardest game
They may
ever.
change jerseys in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
The scoring system changes in the middle of the game. The coach just makes things up. Sometimes they'll throw a flag and pick it up, and there's no announcement as to what just happened. Bob Stoops back then would there'd be 2.5 minutes left in the game, and he'd just say, we've had enough. I mean, it's not a real game.
Yeah.
But this is the first opportunity for OU fans to hear what the new play-by-play guy sounds like. And you can't really get too excited when someone scores a touchdown because you're scoring a touchdown, but you're also giving up a touchdown.
Yeah.
So your defense also just, it's just a weird thing. And it was a terrible idea for that to be the first game that I called.
Yeah.
But it happened and they didn't fire me. And that was good. And then we went on about the rest of the season. So
what was that that first regular season game? Probably would have been a warm-up game, right? Would have been Tulsa or somebody coming in before
Tulsa.
an actual Big Ten game.
Yeah, it was Tulsa.
What year is that?
That was 2011.
I want to say I was at that game. That might have even been my first OU game.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
Because a guy from Bethany was playing, maybe. No, it wouldn't have been, because Garrett McGrady played for Tulsa for a little bit. He played for Tulsa, but
Paul
I think
McGrady's son,
Paul McGrady's
yeah.
son. But I think Garrett played. It was later, I want to say, because I remember going to that game just to specifically see him being there. Sad story, broke his femur in practice and never was the same. Horrific accident at practice. But yeah, Paul McGrady's son played at Tulsa. So that was not the same year, but that was my first year at SNU, my first year in the States, and my first experience to college American football. I'd never seen anything like it.
Owen Field, seeing all the pageantry and
never
everything.
seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's special.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I was trying to act like I wasn't nervous, but I was nervous. There was a lot of talk about, what's the catchphrases going to be and what's he going to say when they score touchdowns and all this. And I was in my head a little bit about, I got to say something that's going to blow people's socks off. And
Sure.
if I listened, I wouldn't listen back, because I know if I listened back, I would hate what I heard. But I remember being pretty nervous. I honestly, I think the first year or so went okay, but I was not super comfortable because I was hearing the comparisons, and I should have been better at blocking out the comparisons. I stayed off of message boards, but there's a lot of social media out there, and I was on social media, and it's just natural. I would have done it.
Yeah.
If I had heard, and I heard Bob Berry's voice forever. Whoever the next guy was wouldn't have sounded right, because it's just different.
Yeah, it's change. Yeah.
I grew up hearing this voice, and now it doesn't matter if they're good or bad or whatever. You're not going to like it for a while. And so I heard some of that, and I was trying to figure out how do I get that to go away. And I remember I heard a podcast with Vin Scully about a year into the job, and he had a similar situation. He was in his first year with the Brooklyn Dodgers, way back when. He finished a game one day, and Red Barber came in, who was his predecessor, and was mad at him, was mad at Vin. And Vin goes, "What are you mad at me about?" And he said, "I didn't hire you to be like me. I hired you to be you. Quit trying to be Red Barber and be Vin Scully." And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. It was like peace came over my body, because I was like, oh, well, I can never be as good of a Bob Berry as Bob Berry. And I can never be as good of a John Brooks as John Brooks. But nobody can ever be as good of a Toby Rowland as I can be.
Yeah.
Just quit trying to compare yourself and go do you. And it'll either be good enough or it won't be good enough. But I can be the best if I just be myself. And from that point on, I've had a comfort in my call and a peace about it. And I know everyone doesn't like me, but
yeah, well, you're gonna have people who don't like. They're all the older guys who love the old team or loves the old commentator or whatever it is. But it's your style, and you are natural, and you also now are comfortable with the style that you have. Like you said, you're not trying to be someone else, because that's not doing you a service. That's not doing them any value either. It's like, and the listener as well, especially with audio, they can tell in your voice if you're not confident, if you're nervous or whatever it is.
Sure.
Like it's much easier, isn't it? If you're just listening and you're like, oh, like, you know, he's not clear in his thoughts. There's no flow to the conversation or flow to the way he's calling things. And I'm sure from that day it was like, now it's kind of a freeing that I'm just going to go be me.
Fun. It's more fun. You know, I can call a game the way I like to call a game and be me. And I really hope people enjoy that. And if they don't, I'm sorry, but I've got to do it that way. And from that point on, it's been a lot more relaxing, and I think I've kind of settled in.
And also, like, if you don't love what you do, it's easy. It comes across,
sure,
doesn't it? But clearly, you absolutely love what you do. This is a dream job. You know, you probably wake up every morning and the season's about to start. And you're like, I actually still get to do this every day. Are you serious?
100%. It is never not given me chills when I walk into that radio booth in Owen Field and look out on the field, and I look at that chair that we get to sit in and call. And chills come over me every time. 10 years now, and every time I get chills. I cannot believe we get to do this.
Yeah, and now with the new stadium, last year a new stadium was done, or a year before, whenever it was finished, you know, coming in that day, I'm sure was like, whoa, like, we have a stadium now. Yeah. You know, like it just feels much bigger or much better.
It's a big deal. I mean, OU football is a big deal, and to get to be a part of it is really cool. Yeah,
and then obviously it's not just football, right? You know, it's basketball too, and they're a totally different play calling,
right?
You know, it's different sports, different things. Is basketball easier than football?
You know, that's a good. I do baseball, basketball, and football, and I get asked a lot, which do you enjoy the most? And that's like asking, you know, which of your kids do you love the most? You know,
it's the firstborn, obviously.
Whichever one will take care of me in my old age is the answer. They're all different. I mean, they're really different in how you go about trying to call them. I think my favorite is basketball, because I played basketball. It comes a little more naturally. It flows for me more naturally. The terminology, the coaching, the thought process, what's trying to be accomplished on the floor, all that kind of stuff comes naturally. A basketball game is quick when you're calling it. It's fast action. It's almost a continuous flow of words trying to describe what's going on the court in front of you. I see it, mouth calls it, boom, 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 boom. And I like that. That's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a runaway roller coaster, and you got to hang on. But for 2 hours, it's about as much fun as you can have. Baseball, I've probably listened to more baseball on the radio than anything else. And I think a well-called baseball game is romantic. I mean, you've got 3-4 hours with a listener. It's a slow pace. There's about 15 minutes of action in that 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of dead space to fill with storytelling. What does this moment mean? I call a lot of games by myself. And there's an artistry to being able to call a baseball game in a manner in which people want to listen. That's a hard thing to do. But if you can do it well, like Vin Scully, and like, you know, a lot of guys in the pros, but if you can do it well, then it's probably the hardest thing to execute in play-by-play.
Yeah.
And I love the challenge. I love baseball, the sport, and I love the challenge of trying to put forth an interesting baseball broadcast. Football is the monster. You know, football at OU is the monster. Yeah. The actual call of the play is very regimented. There's almost a formula by which you need to call each play. I need to set up the formation, I need to describe the action, then I need to give the down and distance and the time and the clock, and then I get out of the way for the color analyst to talk, and then I do it all over again. What's the formation called? So there's a formula to it. It's very regimented. There's a little room for creativity when somebody, you know, actually throws the ball or runs the ball. Not as much as in basketball, but it's the totality of an OU broadcast. I mean, it's a 7 or 8 hour broadcast. We've got 10 or 11 people that are working on it. We've got 85,000 people in the stands, 35 radio affiliates, and it's streaming all over the world. And we hear it, you know, we hear from people in Israel and Russia and Japan who are listening up in the middle of the night to an OU football game. And so you add all of that up, and that's what makes calling a football game special.
Yeah.
You know, the actual calling of a play, I wouldn't say it's the most fun you can have, but the totality of the broadcast is what makes your blood rush for OU
Yeah,
football.
that impact and reach, and like you said, you have someone halfway around the world who's woken up, set their alarm to listen to an OU football game, and you're the voice that's giving them the action.
I tell you, I think the coolest thing and the biggest compliment you can get is when we look out of our press box window and people are wearing headphones in the crowd, and you think, there are people who have no option but then to hear us. They're in a car on a cross-country trip or whatever, and the radio is their only option. But then there are people at home or especially in the stadium who have decided, I want to experience this with you.
Yeah.
I don't have to. I could just watch the game. Or if I'm at home, I've got a television broadcast. I don't have to turn down the TV and turn up the radio. But they have decided that they prefer to experience an OU football game with you and with your crew. And that's cool. That is really cool. We look around and we're on the road or whatever, and you look down and you see people wearing headphones and stuff, and you're like, golly, that's so cool that that's a lot of effort to go to bring it to the game and tune it in and decide to experience it with us. That's pretty neat.
Well, I mean, what stands out as some of the best moments, I mean, across all sports, I mean, you've had so many athletes that you've covered, that are now professional athletes, are doing great things. And so many games that you've been to, and the Alabama game, and Trae Young just going off, and baseball guys who are now in the MLB and stuff like that. Like, is there any that, and there might not even be a big game that stands out, but is there one or a couple of games that stand out that's like, man, this is that was a good day?
Yeah, there's a lot. We in football, they've had the opportunity to win a bunch of Big 12 championships and play in Sugar Bowls and Rose Bowls and Orange Bowls and everything. I think that when you get to take a road trip to some of these other iconic venues, that those are real pinch me moments. When we got to go to Notre Dame and call a game, you see Touchdown Jesus and where here's where the movie Rudy was shot and everything, the gold dome. And when we got to go to Tennessee, and that was an unbelievable game that night. Yeah, but
wild.
You're right there on the Tennessee River in the middle of the Tennessee mountains and the checkerboard end zone, and these things you've seen all your life that you're in the middle of. Ohio State had a game at Ohio State. That's the night that Baker planted the flag at midfield. And so when you get to go, obviously the Rose Bowl and some of these other iconic venues that growing up such a big fan of sports, not only do you get to be there, but to call a game there, those are really cool moments for us as a crew. For basketball, I mean, the year that they made the Final Four run and the whole journey with Buddy Hield was as much fun as you can possibly have. He was such a great character, a great player, a great interview. I've never seen anybody in any sport that I've called where the opposing crowd cheered for them and embraced them like Buddy.
Yeah.
Trae was pretty universally disliked by opposing fans. Baker was universally disliked by and that's usually the way it is.
Yeah.
Blake Griffin, a great player. Everybody else hated him because he was on our team.
Yeah.
Buddy won everybody over.
That's special.
I remember we were in Manhattan one night for a Kansas State game. And we get off the bus, and I go to, broadcast spot courtside, and I'm setting up the equipment. And here comes Buddy running. He's always the first one onto the court, running out of the locker room and onto the court. And at Kansas State, the fans get there way early. The students get there way early. And Buddy runs out of the tunnel, and they just rain boos on him. It's just 2,000 kids probably there already. Yeah. Boo! They're yelling all kinds of stuff at him. And Buddy grabs a basketball and shoots a three and makes it, shoots another and makes it, another. He makes about 10 in a row, and all of a sudden the students are like murmuring, a little bit.
Like, oh, we're in trouble.
He's working his way around the key, three, drains it. He's made about 20 straight threes without missing, fresh off the bus.
Yeah.
And now like with every make, you can hear there's like, whoa, and he makes another one, and then there's some applause. He makes another one, they're like cheering. He gets to 30 straight, and with every shot he's making, now they're going wild because they cannot believe what they're watching. He missed after 34 straight makes. He missed one, and they go bananas. They start cheering, and he turns and points at him and winks. And then goes back. And in like 3 minutes, he's gone from enemy to hero. Yeah. And he had him the rest of the night, whatever he did. So he had such an infectious personality about him that even we were at Kansas and lost one night in triple overtime, and they gave him a standing ovation after the game. So, which at Kansas is a huge deal. Yeah, they hate us in Kansas. So, I think covering him in that year was the most fun I've had. And pick a game in basketball. Baseball's like I said, I love baseball, and not all play-by-play guys who do football and basketball do baseball. There's not a lot of us. There's 5 or 10 around the country. But I asked to do it. I love to call baseball games. And there are some moments that baseball gives you where you have a comeback in the bottom of the ninth or a walk-off home run or a Big 12 championship or whatever the case may be that are as good as it gets because it's an unscripted moment. There's nothing like that game-winning shot at the buzzer or a walk-off home run that gets your juices flowing. So there's been a lot of great baseball moments too. We're running out of time soon, so we'll close on this. Tell me about the new book that's come out, the kids book. Seems to be doing great. I think so. Crazy time to release a book, I assume, right, with COVID and stuff like that. Or might even be a great time to release a book. But first book you've written. First one. It's called Unhitch the Wagon: The Story of Boomer and Sooner. Children's book. It's going to take you about 7 minutes to plow through it. It's not heavy reading at all, but it's the rhyming tale of 2 ponies named Bud and Benny who grow up on the Oklahoma prairie, and they have the dream of someday becoming the ponies Boomer and Sooner that pull the Sooner Schooner. Yeah. But they've got to earn the right to do that. And so in an effort to earn their stripes, their adventures kind of take them through the Big 12 Conference a little bit in a creative way without calling out our rivals to prove that they they deserve to be Boomer and Sooner. Yeah. And I think it's doing well. I have nothing to compare it to. I don't know if this is a good time or a bad time to release a book, but it's the way it worked out. And Sooner Nation has been unbelievable. I think the first day we announced it was even open for pre-orders, it went to number 1 on what was the category on Amazon? Children's football books or something like. I didn't even know there had a category like that. But it's we've had a lot of great retailers pick it up, and people have ordered them, and it's fun. I've never done anything like this before. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's something that either as a birthday gift or a Christmas gift or just to add to your OU collection. You throw it on the shelf next to your Dr. Seuss books and some night pick it out and read. Maybe the night before a game, pick it out and read to your kids about the adventures of Bud and Benny. But it's been fun. Well, something new. You've been doing book signings before. Obviously, now we're going to get busy and into game stuff. But I've seen you following social media and you look like you've been around promoting it, traveling it, and it's exciting. And like I said, it's something totally different. It's a kids book, which not a lot of people do, and I'm sure your kids love it, and wife's all about it as well. So. We're all on board. It's not often these days something new comes into your life, but this has been a cool new adventure, and I think it's surprised us a little bit how well it's been received. I think we had hopes that, hey, maybe some people will buy this thing, but we're going to do it. But it's kind of exploded on us here. And awesome. Yeah, that's been great. Yeah. And I get to do this podcast because of it. Exactly. Yeah, I appreciate that. This is the highlight of it all. Thank you so much. Last thing, we've got, season's about to start. What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? Any players coming in that you're super excited to call and see and see how they can impact Big Ten and OU? Well, it's, they just yesterday announced that Spencer Rattler is going to be the quarterback this year. So obviously, you guys start with that. Lincoln has been the quarterback whisperer at OU. And whether it's Baker or Kyler or Jalen Hurts, whoever's played that position under him has been a star. And so it'll be very intriguing to see if this kid with so much talent and potential can kind of be the next star quarterback at OU. I think the intriguing thing about this year is that at the positions where they're normally really deep and where they have, big time stars, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, we really don't know who it's going to be now because a lot of those names have either graduated and gone to the NFL or have opted out or transferred. And so some stars are going to emerge, but you don't know who they are going into the year. So there's opportunity there for somebody to become the next big star at OU, and just to kind of get to sit back and see, is it going to be Charleston Rambo? Is it going to be TJ Pledger? Is it going to be Marvin Mims, one of these highly touted freshmen that comes in? I don't know. It's an unwritten script, and we get to start seeing how it plays out.
Super exciting. Really appreciate you coming down. Really appreciate Bedford's for setting up this amazing, this studio that we're in today, and excited to see, like you said, everything. You're coming in and it's coming into an unknown, right? You don't know who's going to step up. Whereas in previous years, you'd be like, oh, Shepard's amazing. He's going to do his thing. Broyles is doing his thing or whatever, and then Baker's still coming back. Like it's, you kind of know what's going to happen, right? But this year there's so many unknowns, and obviously with COVID and having a smaller team that you have and just being able to adjust and do those things, it's exciting. I'm sure it's been nervous and can be different, but no doubt you're going to adapt to it. No, you're going to do the best thing they can to produce the best broadcast and also win another championship and hopefully win a national championship, right?
That'd be great. That'd be great. We're going to try to have the best broadcast in the country and win the national championship.
Yeah, that'd be a good year.
That's a good year. That's right.
Yeah, well, mate, I really appreciate your time. How can people follow you on social media, and then how can they buy the book?
I'm on Twitter at TROOU, and I think Instagram is Sooner Voice. And then you can buy the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble online. We're at I think we're up to like 15 or 20 retailers across the state now, whether you're in Oklahoma City or Tulsa. And I've got those on my social media too. So
great.
Check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I really appreciate your time. It's been awesome. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.